Namaskar. This is Akhilesh Bhargava. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. The two primary reasons for the present upheavals, uncertainty, disruption and crisis in the global economy are the ongoing unending Ukraine war and second, the start of withdrawal of surplus liquidity which had been pumped in by many nations led by the US. These factors have led to a sharp rise in inflation which has derailed and disrupted global growth. The RBI governor refers to it as the tectonic shifts caused by the conflict in Europe, which has created fresh challenges for global growth and also challenges for the conduct of monetary policy in each nation. The economic recovery and growth that had started to set in has already lost steam, and that is reflecting on household and corporate income and savings already. In his recent statement, after the sudden unscheduled MPC meet to announce the increase in repo rates by 40 basis points and to also increase the CRR ratio to 4.5%, the RBI governor painted a grim, but for a change, a realistic picture of the prevailing state of the economy worldwide. He said that as the war draws on and sanctions and retaliatory actions intensify, volatility in commodity and financial markets, supply dislocations, and most alarmingly, he says, persistent and spreading inflationary pressures are becoming more and more acute with each passing day. He then says that debt distress is rising in the developing world amidst capital outflows and currency depreciations that are taking place. Recent GDP releases suggest, according to him, that the global economic recovery is losing pace, it is losing steam, it is losing momentum. The governor then says that by a prudent and favorable policy mix and by remaining accommodative in the monetary policy, the Indian economy has managed to weather the shock so far. Mr. Das says that we have been able to preserve macro financial stability despite the synchronized shocks of commodity prices, supply disruptions, and higher inflation unleashed by the war. The RBI governor then says that globally, inflation is rising alarmingly and it is spreading fast. Geopolitical tensions are racketing up inflation to their highest levels in the last 3 to 4 decades in all major economies. He refers to the IMF's World Economic Outlook of April 2022 and he says that the economic effects of the war are spreading far and wide, like seismic waves that emanate from the epicenter of an earthquake, mainly through commodity markets, trade, and financial linkages. Mr. Das then says that these developments would have ominous implications for emerging economies, including India, of course. He finally says that even as the drivers of domestic economy activity are getting stronger, they yet face headwinds from global spillovers in the form of protracted and intensifying geopolitical tensions, elevated commodity prices. They also face headwinds because of COVID-19 related lockdowns or restrictions in some major economies. They face obstructions because of slowing external demand and tightening global financial conditions because of the monetary policy normalization in advanced economies. These are the headwinds that he points out, which are there to growth taking place anywhere in the world, including India, of course. Despite such strong headwinds to global demand, trade and growth, which are evident from this statement of the Reserve Bank governor, a recent FICCI survey to gauge business expectations for April to September 22 period shows a bullish and upbeat confidence among the survey respondents. The survey actually paints a bullish business and economic outlook for the forthcoming 2 quarters ending on 30th September 2022 despite these headwinds. The FICCI survey findings or highlights are: the first, 46% respondents indicated much improved capacity utilization of over 75% in their businesses, as against 30% doing so in the last survey, which shows a clear pickup in consumption demand. The second, therefore, 46% respondents cited weak demand as a constraint to growth as against 60% in the earlier survey. The third, with improved demand and better capacity utilization, the overall business confidence index has risen to 67.6% as against the earlier figure of 63.9%. The current conditions confidence index has gone up to 66.1% as against 62.6% in the earlier survey, and so has the expectation index gone up to 68.4% as compared to the earlier figure of 64.5%. The survey then finds that with the index of anticipation of better sales prospects going up to 62% from the earlier figure of 50%, it says that 50% of the respondents now anticipate higher investments as against the earlier figure of just 40%. Thus, it is a bullish and upbeat survey. However, there were some red flags. The red flags in the survey were that 84% of the respondents cited higher raw material costs as a significant impediment to confidence and to growth. The figure in the earlier survey was 82%. The second red flag, therefore 48% of the respondents said that the cost of production has gone up by more than 10%, and 43% respondents said that it has gone up by up to 9%. The third red flag, only 22% of the respondents expected higher profits during the next 6 months. And finally, only 34% of those surveyed expect higher exports in the next 2 quarters, because though India's export prospects have been robust, yet global trade is expected to witness a slowdown, and thus their expectations is lower. With no end to the Ukraine war in sight, and both Russia and Ukraine willing to escalate the conflict to make gains which improve their bargaining power in case of eventual peace talks taking place, it is surprising that the FICCI survey shows an improvement in the overall business confidence. This improvement comes at a time when each and every agency and authority worldwide has downgraded India's and the world's GDP growth rates during the current financial year, and they have all upgraded their already grim forecasts of inflation, which continues to rise, and nobody is predicting when will it peak and plateau. At such a time, yet another realistic assessment of the state of the Indian economy comes from Shri Nirmala Sitharaman, the erudite former Revenue Secretary of India, who has been widely credited with overhauling India's custom tariff regulation and infrastructure. In a hard-hitting but realistic article in the New Indian Express on the state of the Indian economy, Mr. Sitharaman writes that the Modi government is smug with expectation of an 8% growth in the current financial year. But he says that with inflation being a major factor, danger is lurking in all corners of the economy. He points out that retail inflation at 6.75% is not going to decrease when the full transmission effect of the steep rise in fuel costs is taken into account. It will shoot up as seen in the past and being currently witnessed in the US, with additional financing costs being incurred by the government because of this rising inflation. The second thing he points out is that forex reserves have sharply declined from 17 months import to hardly 12 months imports, and a further fall in reserves will follow as the US Fed hikes rates. In fact, it is expected to continue to hike rates. The third thing he points out is that our household savings, which are crucial for investment, are now a little more than 30% of GDP, but they need to improve to at least a level of 36% for the economy to grow at 8% as the government expects to. Thus, there is a mismatch between growth and the household savings at the moment. He finally says that the state of employment generation has not improved in India, and large industry has shown a decline, likely because of the use of artificial intelligence and robotics. Labor participation rate is down to 40% in 2021. Mr. Sitharaman then points to some more worrisome trends on the horizon, and he says that the rapid introduction of electric vehicles will cause a sharp decline in employment in the automobile sector, and hundreds of thousands could be jobless in the next few years. He then says that increasing pollution will force India to shut down thermal power plants and coal mines, leading to mass unemployment. He then points out that India's agricultural labor is 144 million strong and is predominantly low paid. A smooth transition is needed to give them productive and better paying jobs to bring down the proportion of persons who are dependent on agriculture from 42% of the population at present to 25% according to him in the next 5 to 7 years. Finally, he says that the disparity and inequality in the population is extremely worrisome. The ground reality does not at all display the confidence that the FICCI survey reveals. The fault, perhaps according to us, lies in the very methodology of the FICCI survey. Either the number of survey respondents were very few in number and the sample size was thus not representative and wholesome, or it only surveyed the top corporates which have reaped profits even when the Indian economy contracted last year, and they are thus bound to remain bullish. If the survey had included respondents from the MSME and from the unorganized sector, then the findings would have been reflecting the true picture. And instead of revealing confidence, it would have revealed nervousness among the respondents. While the earlier problems of missing livelihood and employment, as also the lack of consumer demand have not been resolved, this sector, the MSME in the unorganized sector, which is huge in number, now faces a roaring inflation and supply disruption and depleted savings in the kitty to face yet another economic crisis which they are completely not prepared for. Let us not delude ourselves by the misleading findings of the FICCI survey, which at best reveals the state of affairs of the big corporates and the fat billionaires with their overflowing treasuries, and it certainly does not reflect the real economy that we face, the real economy that the common man, the common entrepreneur faces. This is Akhilesh Bhargava signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.